everybody. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Get Ready, and very excited to bring this gentleman to you today. A gentleman who I met by phone, I believe it was some years back. But let me tell you a little bit about him. One of a new generation of spiritual visionaries and thought leaders, Derek Rydall is the #1 best-selling author of Emergence: Seven Steps for Radical Life Change, which I wrote an endorsement for when it came out a few years back, which revealed the revolutionary principle, the law of emergence, showing people how to tap into the pattern of perfection in any area of their life and create the right conditions for it to unfold. In his new book, The Abundance Project: 40 Days to More Wealth, Health, Love, and Happiness, he presents a time-tested system for activating the abundance principle, which sets you free from the belief that outer conditions determine your life and shows you how to generate everything you need no matter what conditions you face. How awesome is that? Derek has trained top executives of Fortune 500 companies in empowered leadership, coached Oscar and Emmy-winning celebrities and media professionals on creating conscious content, and helps thought leaders and influencers tap into their deepest purpose, courageously live their highest truth, and launch their most authentic work into the world. As the host of the Emergence podcast, he also shares cutting-edge spiritual principles and success strategies to achieve financial freedom, master productivity and creativity, and gain true wealth and happiness. His global platform has touched hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. And now here on Get Ready, welcome to the show, Derek Rydall.
And unfortunately, because of my long resume, we're out of time, folks.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. It's great to talk to you. Good to be here. It's really good to be here. Yeah, they should have heard our conversation before. We let all the good stuff out. It's like, that's why Oprah never talks to her guests before the interview. She says, hi, and waits all the juicy stuff comes out. But it's really,
I am
really great to be
quite
here.
confident that we will still get some juicy stuff. I'm counting on it because it's in the contract you signed.
That's true. That's true.
You promised my audience some juicy content.
Some juicy truth.
So why don't we start by how about if you tell us how you woke up to this concept of awakened wealth?
Yeah, when I almost ended up on the street. Well, I'd been on a journey of personal development for many years, and up even before this point, and on almost died twice, discovering many big insights, and I'd become very, very much a devotee to this deep truth, to this deeper connection to source, and to being an instrument of something good in the world. And I felt really good about myself and my life and my direction, except I was going broke. And anybody, right? It's not just me.
Raise your hand if you've been there.
Yeah, if you understand that one. And at one point I was living in North Hollywood, and I was literally living on a prayer. I was, bill collectors were calling me. I was behind in the rent. I was about to be evicted. No joke. I literally had one of those landlords that shows up in the robe with the cigarette, with the ash, that's always about to fall. And she's like, you gotta go, that kind of thing. And so I had the landlord knocking on my front door, the bill collectors knocking on the back door. And I was in some pretty desperate straits. And I remember one night, I was honestly, I don't know if this isn't really cussing, but I was pissed off at God. I was like, how is all of this what I've ended up with after all the efforts and all the work and all the devotion to growing or waking up or whatever? And I remember sitting I literally had a fake leather chair. I pulled my faux leather chair out into the middle of my room, and I sat in it. And I said, to whatever God there is, I'm not getting up from this chair until I know that this stuff is real or that it's total BS. But they're going to have to pry my cold, lifeless hands off of this faux leather chair, because I'm not moving until I know the truth. And I sat there, and daylight turned into dusk, and the crickets came out and played their nightly chorus, and I wrestled my demons like Jacob, and wrestling, trying to get my blessing. And at some point, and I was losing terribly, and at some point in the middle of the night, I went into this space, and it was like this voice spoke to me. And I don't know if it was literally a voice, but it was it felt like a voice, and it said, literally, I'm not joking, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." And it was like it thundered, and I wasn't like a religious person, and I remember looking around half expecting to see Charlton Heston, holding some tablets in his hand. And I'm like, and then it opened up this wisdom, and it revealed to me that I'd made my savings account, because I was living off of savings. It said, "You made your savings account your God."
Mm.
And it said, "You've made all these things your source." Um, when I was an actor, I made my agent my source. When I was, whatever, right? So it said, "You've made all these things your source." And when you make anything or anyone outside of you your source of anything, of safety, security, support, abundance, the life is set up to fail you. Because if you were to succeed, and to the extent you succeed at that, you then become a servant to that outer source. You have to twist yourself into pretzels. You have to be something you're not. You have to be someone you're not. Again, anybody. And it says, and the only way for you to be who you are and to deliver what you came for is to not be beholden to any external sources, but only beholden to the one source. In other words, don't lean on resource, lean on the source.
Mm.
And in that moment of awareness, I didn't fully grok the wisdom, but something opened up in me, and it was like a pressure valve was released, and all the stress drained out of my body, and a peace. I could only say the first time I ever really experienced what might be the peace of God, or the peace that passes all understanding. This peace came over me, and I just knew I was going to be okay.
Mm.
And I fell asleep, and I literally woke up to the sound of birds, kind of like Eckhart Tolle's story. And for the next few days, I wandered around just kind of in a daze of bliss. I was still going to be evicted. I was still, bills were still due. It wasn't like suddenly there was piles of cash in my living room, but I knew something had radically shifted. I was back home again. I was back connected to the real source of my agency, my power, my confidence. The phone rang. This is within 3 days. And my ex-agent, so it's appropriate to our previous conversation, my ex-agent, commercial agent, he goes, "Hey, Derek, this is Keith. I know you don't do commercials anymore because you're too spiritual." But literally, that's why I quit. I was like, "I'm too spiritual, man. I can't do that stuff." I was crazy, I'm telling you. And he goes, "But they just called looking for you suddenly out of the blue."
Yeah.
And I was like, A little voice said, "Take that audition." So I went on that audition. I booked a commercial. I made more than I've ever made in a year for 2 days' work. And I was fine, obviously, financially. But the key was that I could have never imagined that. I could have never visualized that. I could have never attracted that merely. That it was, I got back to the real connection of something. I put my attention. I was no longer serving two masters. I was no longer a house that was divided. I was back in integrity with myself, back with what I believe is the way life works. And I never looked back to that level of challenge or struggle again, ever. And I began to have all these new insights. And that's really where, and that was there was a recession going on, but out of that crisis, I had nothing. That realization came, and that was the birth of the awakened wealth principle and process that has gone on. Took me from living in a one-room apartment, living off of mac and cheese, to million-dollar homes and multi-million-dollar businesses, and a lot more things besides money.
Right.
A greater expression of my purpose and my potential and love and family and all of that.
Yeah, I love that concept of the source, because people often talk about having multiple sources of income, MSIs, and I'm like, channels, multiple
Right.
channels. There's one source.
Exactly. That's a brilliant distinction, Brad. Exactly. That's brilliant. It's like, nope, nope. You only have one source,
Yeah.
but you have multiple. Because I do talk about that in the Awaken Wealth process. Nobody is your source, but everybody is a channel.
Yes.
The whole world is your channel. And we talk about the need to open up and connect to your source. But then the way you open up to the world, the channels of the world, is you do have to knock, seek, and ask. You have to do the work. You have to step into the world. You have to ask for what you want. You have to go for it. But you always have to do it remembering nobody is your source. And so you're never tied down to, well, if they say no, I don't have any other options.
Right, right. If you keep knocking on just one door, this is the only door I can knock
Right,
on.
right.
Well,
And conversely, if you buy into this belief, which is the other side of it, where people are all like, God is my source, or it's like that joke, the guy who's very spiritual and the town starts to flood. And you know
yes.
that one, right?
Yeah.
And the guy, they come to the door, it's, Harry, you got to go, man. The town's going to flood. Don't worry. God is my source. God will protect me. And he's like, all right, man. And the town fills up and the boat comes along. He's like, Harry, come on, man. The town's flooding. He's like, don't worry. God is my source. And then it fills up. He's on the roof, and the guy comes along with the helicopter. Harry, take the ladder. He's like, I'm good. God is my source. Glug 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 glug, and he drowns. And he's like, up at heaven, St. Peter's, or God's like, I don't get it. What's the deal? He's like, I sent the fireman, the sheriff, the boat, the helicopter. What do you want, man? So it's true. It's like the joke of the guy going to the door of a party and he looks in the window and there's this beautiful party and all these amazing people and opportunities. And he just sits there and goes, he feels so bad and so sad that nobody's inviting him in. He doesn't get to enjoy it. And he doesn't understand why life is so hard. And then he turns around and goes home, but he never knocked.
Right, right.
And that's sometimes in the spiritual kind of new age, secret, just dream it and it will show up at your back door kind of mentality. We miss that side of the equation. I think it's really important.
And there, just to go on this theme of similar jokes, is the man who for years and years says, God, would it be so wrong if I should win the lottery? And after years of this, God finally says to him, would you buy a ticket already?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I'll say, okay, one more. This is just going to be a comedy hour. But this isn't really comedy, but no, it's just the example of the guy who's outside in the dark and he's under a street light and he's looking for something. His neighbor comes along and they look, and he's helping him look. And like an hour later, his neighbor, he's like, he lost his key or something. And he goes, where did you lose it? The neighbor finally asks, exasperated. And the guy goes, I lost it inside the house, but the light's so much better out here.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like the connection, the source, it's inside, but it's it's easier to put our attention outside. Right.
Yeah.
We're born with one of those little things above our heads spinning around and getting our attention. And we've learned to believe that the source and the real goods is out there. And we've also learned to believe, which is a part of the awakened wealth, that what we are actually there for after is something out there.
Yeah.
We like some change of conditions. If I only had this, if I only had that, if I had more of this or less of that, which is why Buddha talked about the end of desire or craving and aversion,
right.
Because if I could just get more of something or less of something, I would finally have enough somethings in order to be happy, joyful, peaceful, free, to be able to be myself.
Yeah.
And we bought into a belief that, which is one of the hypnotic spells of wealth is in abundance, is that we have to purchase our state of being through some external change or condition, when actually it's exactly the opposite. All 7 point whatever billion people, they're going after a state of being. They just don't know it, most people, right? They think it's more dollars, more people, more jobs, more stocks, more bonds, more cabbages and kings, but they're really going after a deeper state of being, whether it's joy, peace, love, all of which we brought with us. And we just got to turn on that divine power plant and start generating it. And then it will produce the byproduct, which is conditions that reflect back to us that state of being.
Yeah.
But
and that's why Scripture
I mean to
says,
filibuster, but I just got passionate there.
Yeah. Well, and it goes along with another line from the Bible: "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these other things shall be added onto you." Not keep buying, and sooner or later, because that line is always then out in front of us. Oh, I finally bought what I need. Oh, wait, there's something more.
Something more. Yeah. There's always a new line to get in at, 5 a.m. to get the latest, greatest. And also the idea that just work harder and harder and harder and struggle and push. And another line is not by might nor by power, not by the sweat of your brow, we really have been totally, it's the script has completely been flipped.
Yeah.
And we've given away our agency and our power to princes and kings and principalities and all that. Again, we're using all these Bible quotes, but this isn't religious. It really isn't
It's
religious.
just common sense that's written down and
Principles.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if you study the great religions or philosophies from Buddhism to Christianity to Judaism to Hinduism, it's they're all saying the same fundamental principles with different ideologies on top and different cultural idioms, but they're principles. And that's another thing that has been my pursuit is is like studying all the great texts of the world, all the great religions, philosophies, success literature, all of that, kind of like Stephen Covey did, to find out what are those universal principles for whatever. And in this case, what are the principles that create wealth and abundance, that fulfill our true potential? And the Awaken Wealth process was something that I got through suffering, but then I got confirmation as I began to go, why did that just work in my life? What happened that caused my life to go from broke and broken to flourishing, and then time and time again, like not just once, but through a lot of different tests and trials and challenges.
Yeah. So it wasn't just that one commercial, and then you're living off of that now.
Exactly. It wasn't, although, there used to be a day you can't live off commercials anymore. But but no, yeah, it was many things, and many challenges, like being in the job from hell at some point, even after that. And and then realizing that I was kind of like a plant. When a plant is planted in a little pot, if it had self-consciousness, it might complain about where it's planted and be like, God, look at those bigger pots. Look at those plants that are free in the field. If only I could be there. And maybe it even visualizes being in a bigger field, but it doesn't dig its roots and fill out the pot it's in. And so I've had that, being in the job from hell and using this principle that whatever's missing is what you're not giving, and enacting one of the principles, which is the principle of emergence, but also one of the principles of Awaken Wealth, which is the law of circulation, that it's all within us, and that that conditions arise in our lives that are challenging or that we might call a crisis or whatever. They're not showing up to destroy us or diminish us or limit us. They're showing up to activate, to cause us to activate something that's latent in us, like the fire that is necessary for the jack pine to flourish, or the rough, rocky soil that's necessary for certain plants to activate these enzymes that give them really healthy, strong bark so they can thrive in these different climates. And so like that job from hell, as I learned, was as I showed up to be the person I wanted to be, as I began to bring the love, the excellence, the joy, the service, regardless of what was coming at me, that's also meaning, by the way, turn the other cheek that's the principle. As I brought the seeming opposite energy, the energy I wanted to bring, the energy that appeared missing, I started becoming a generator of that. And I ultimately got fired 3 times from that job. And at the end, they're like, you know what? I think you don't belong here. And I basically outgrew it. And within a month of that job, I was a waiter. And I wrote an article called How I Stopped Waiting and Started Serving. And I went from making $50 a day in a 3-star restaurant to making $1,500 a day 1 month later, being wined and dined in 5-star restaurants all over the country, doing the work I loved, performing, serving, supporting. But the key was that didn't happen after I left that job. That happened right there in the midst of that job as I applied these principles we're talking about. I remembered that I was the source. I remembered that everything I need, I brought it with me, just like a seed brings everything it needs with it. And I remembered that I just have to keep bringing and digging my roots and expanding my branches and filling out the space that I've been given, mastering that little piece of the garden that I've been given to tend to. Don't look around at the other garden. Oh my God, look at everybody else. They have bigger plots of land. No, make my flower the best flower possible. And as a result, not only did I get great tips while I was there, but I grew, I activated more of my potential, and life will always move you into a place if you're willing to let more life come through you. Life will always put you in a position because all that life wants is to get out, is to express, right? Everything is conspiring to put life on display. And if you're willing, no matter what condition you're in, you will become a stronger instrument, a stronger coil, able to carry more wattage, more power. If you're a surfer and you go from beach to beach to beach, going, where's the big wave, man? Where's the big wave? And you never surf, then the big wave comes, it's going to kill you. But if you get out there and you surf your you know what off every single day, it's not about the hard work. It's about what you're activating and developing. Life's going to give you bigger and bigger waves. Wouldn't you agree, Brad?
Absolutely. It reminds me of Jim Rohn's comment about don't wish that life were easier, wish that you were better.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I like to say, when the burden is too heavy, don't pray for it to be lighter. Pray to get stronger.
Yeah.
And those mountains in front of you are there to make you a better mountain climber. That's all.
It's funny. So for everyone, before we started record, Derek and I were talking about our careers as actors prior to doing personal development, and I also had that waiting job where I got fired, which I later coined the term "pink slip from God." God
Exactly.
saying, you're not happy here. This is not what you're supposed to be doing, but you're not doing anything about it. So
Right.
I'm going to have to take care of this for you.
Exactly.
And I was fired under strange circumstances. Like what they were saying is like that. No, that's just not true.
That was exactly what happened to me. I'm like, no, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, what happened there? It was so confusing. And then I realized, like you, first of all, we didn't belong there. And that also because I was bringing more and more, there was literally a vibrational mismatch.
Right.
I outgrew it. Right.
Yes.
And yeah, that's brilliant. I love slip from God. And I think the whole thing about how I stopped waiting and started serving is another
Excellent.
really important piece.
I love that.
Right, to the Awaken Wealth process. And that's what I call this, the great weight loss program, because you're going to lose all the weight, WAIT, because
Right.
right? Because we're waiting. We're waiting. I don't know when, whenever you see this, we're waiting for the pandemic to end. We're waiting, no matter when you're watching this, even if it's years and years after the Great Plague, that it's always something. Well, I'm waiting for the plague to end. I'm waiting for the economy to come back. I'm waiting to lose those last few pounds. I'm waiting for my kids to go to school. I'm waiting for my kids to come back from school. Waiting for my mother-in-law to move out.
Yeah.
I'm waiting there's always a good reason to wait. And my experience is that whatever you're waiting for, you're waiting with, you're weighing it down.
Yeah.
And that life never holds anything back from us, but we hold ourselves back from life. And again, if you realize that you look just like a human being, but you're really a portal into infinity, that you're really a storehouse of inexhaustible riches, of love, a capacity of love and joy and service and generosity, inspiration, like we can't ever even imagine because it's infinite. Yeah. And if you're waiting for something to inspire you instead of acting from what you want and activating inspiration, you'll be waiting forever. And whatever the quality is, that's why you talked about the Abundance Project book, 40 Days to More Love, what is wealth, health, love, and happiness. All of these qualities are the same, Brad. Wealth is not dollar bills. Wealth, in fact, dollar bill, any more than the fruit on a tree is the wealth of the tree. It's not the wealth of the tree. The fruit is the evidence of the tree's abundance. The wealth is invisible. Yeah. And the wealth is that system and that process that allows it to take soil and transmute it into sap and blossom, flower and fruit. And they've even done a study where they took a tree, put it in a bathtub, with water, measured the volume of everything. And I'm sorry, with dirt, measured the volume of it all, grew fruit, and then measure the volume of the soil again. The soil's volume had not changed in any statistical way. So it was like, where did all of that come that produced the fruit?
Right.
Right? Because you think it's using up the dirt, but if that was the case, by now we would have used up all the dirt on the planet.
Right.
But it's not. It's actually using that to create the alchemy, but the invisible, the frequency, the intelligence is the wealth. And the same thing is true with us. You can start with nothing, like I had nothing. I was living on a prayer. And the energy within us, our consciousness, whatever you want to call it, spirit, God, source, consciousness, intelligence, whatever, is literally the substance of everything. That's the real source and substance of wealth. But then you have to know how to start circulating that substance in your life, how to become the power plant, the generator. And one last thing I'll say, I'll let you take it over, is um, sorry, once you pull my string, man, it's hard for me to stop talking.
No, that's why I have you on here.
Awesome, awesome. So, a power plant doesn't have energy; it generates it.
Right.
That's the point of it.
Yeah.
And so, you are a divine power plant, and you have within you the capacity to generate everything out of seeming nothing. And I just want to point out, where did everything we're seeing right now come from? We call it the Big Bang. There's lots of theories, but mainly the Big Bang. But it came out of seeming nothingness. And what are atoms made out of? 99.9999% empty space. It's just consciousness, intelligence, information, but it forms everything. So if it seems woo-woo to anybody watching, and I doubt it does, everything came out of no thing. And that no thing, though, is not nothing. It's rich with intelligence and substance, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And you, to use another Bible quote, made in the image and likeness of God, doesn't mean God looks like a person. That's the big joke. God made us in his image, and we've been trying to repay the favor ever since. Right?
Just said that to someone the other day.
Right? It's like, no, God is not a man or a woman. God is not a being like that. But made in the image and likeness means we carry the same faculty
Right.
of consciousness and of creative potential. And the whole idea is getting us back to that. And the Awaken Wealth process is about giving you step-by-step distinctions, understandings, and practices to tap back into the source, to turn on that power plant, blow all the dust off of it, and start getting up to full production again. So you can start generating in your life the love. And I'm telling you, I've seen this. I've seen relationships go from being stagnant and near dead and divorce to blossoming. I've seen people that are alone, that could not find a relationship for years and years and years, find the love of their life. Why? Because they came alive, because they started generating the qualities instead of waiting for something or someone to change, including waiting for themselves to change, right? As Gandhi said, we have to be the change we want to see. There's no truer words. And I walk you through that process to start being the change and start activating your potential. And no matter what the economic situation is, now is the best time to practice it. It's job loss, economic challenges, seeming lack and limitation. You develop your mountaintop mindset in the valley. And for many of us, we're in a valley. And now is the best time to get so strong in this consciousness and this truth. And on the other side of contraction, I'll say one last thing. One of the worst things to do, one of the hypnotic wealth spells, is the belief that we should adapt. Adapting. So when something contracts, we contract with it. Worst possible idea, worst strategy. Because on the other side, you'll be smaller. And that's what people do with recessions and depressions and crises and loss and challenge, is they contract with it. And that creates a downward spiral, a failure pattern. But what I'm going to want to support you in doing, and one of the principles, is just to expand in the face of contraction. And when you do, even though it can hurt sometimes, it can be difficult, it can be scary, on the other side of that contraction that you are using as a way to expand, like a workout routine, you will be bigger. And that's the actual purpose of that contraction. Just the same reason you do muscle contractions, you lift weights. You're tearing muscle every time you do that. But on the other side of that, you have more muscle. Your muscles are bigger, and you can carry more energy.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. And breathe.
Keep breathing, Jack. No, I love it. And the analogy you're using about the tree with the fruits, so many of us at times are like trees without fruit and looking at other trees that have more fruit and going, man,
Yes.
if only I could get some of those fruit. If
Right.
somebody would come and deliver some fruit onto my branches, then I could be happy like those others. It's like, so instead, what
Then
you're
you'd run out
teaching
of
people
tape.
is,
Then you'd run out of tape from trying
yeah,
to tape all the fruit to your branches. And then what?
exactly. But yeah, it's learn how to grow the fruit because it comes from inside.
That's a brilliant distinction, Brad. Yeah, exactly. It's the analogy of being the tree and trying to get a bunch of fruit to put on your branches. And first of all, again, you will run out of tape and you'll have a different problem. But the second of all, it's just going to rot. It's just going to rot, right?
Right,
And fall off anyways. And it's the same thing like with the acorn. The acorn doesn't go out and try to get a bunch of oak parts and build an oak.
right, right.
Right? It doesn't have an oak. It doesn't achieve an oak. It doesn't earn its way into oakhood. It surrenders to the soil, and when the conditions are right for that pattern, it emerges.
Yeah,
And that's what's true about being an endogenous creature. An indigenous creature, but we are endogenous, meaning we don't have to wait for some external condition. We can create our own conditions. We're endogenous, we're self effulgent. We don't have to wait for the light to come outside. Even when there's no light, we can activate the light and we can activate the soil of our soul and the seed of our potential no matter what. And I'm telling you, folks watching, again, it might sound woo woo or it might sound magical. It's the most practical truth. It's what we're designed to do. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I'm not here to say 6 days to six figures. Not that it couldn't be, but
right,
because I've
right.
seen it.
It
My
happens.
story, it happens. Well, my story, 2 days to six
Yeah,
figures.
yeah,
But but it's important to know that sometimes it's like the bamboo tree. You plant the seed and you water and weed it and feed it, and 5 years goes by and you're ready to, if you haven't left within year one to kill the person that sold you those Chinese bamboo seeds, in year five, it grows 80 or 90 feet tall.
right.
So it just depends on what you're growing.
Yeah. And it's being able to have that confidence of going, okay, it's coming because it's coming from inside as opposed to I'm waiting for someone else to show up.
Exactly. You're taking your agency back. It's an amazing thing. I mean, I'm still discovering it. Um, you are, I won't go into the detail and I don't want to bring everybody down, but I went through a very big tragedy over the last year with the loss of one of my children. And, you can't even imagine a worse loss than that. And this stuff saved my life. This stuff, because of the work I had done, because of the foundation, and because of my ability to keep remembering that this is not merely a theory. I've proven it for 25 years. I've proven it with tens and tens of thousands of people. I had all that, thank God, to lean on. And I hope wherever you guys are, whatever challenges you might be going through, many of you probably have lost people, you can lean on the frequency that we're emanating, me and Brad, this authority. I'm telling you what I know, that I wouldn't be here probably if it wasn't for these principles and for this practice, because it allowed me to dig deep and to find a source of peace, of even gratitude and joy, and allowed me to stay connected to purpose and allowed me to keep being a generative being of life
Mhm.
force, and allowed me to take the breakdown and the shattering of my heart and allowed me to build an even bigger heart, a heart of even greater love and compassion, of even deeper connection to family, to the world, of even greater service, where something would normally could destroy somebody. Don't get me wrong, it's one of the most excruciating, difficult, painful. I won't paint a pretty picture, but the practice of these principles is legitimate. It saved my life. It saved my family. It saved my home. It's taken me out of, like I said, being on the street over and over and over again. I've got the blessing and the challenge of getting to practice this in pretty much every condition, and it always yields fruit. Always.
Amen. And and obviously that's what we want for everyone watching this, to have
Right.
that sense of purpose, that sense of meaning, that connection, that connection to source, and recognizing you have that connection.
And knowing what I want for all of you, especially now, is to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you have within you the strength, the courage, the confidence, the capacity, everything you need to be all that you were created to be and more than you can imagine, and to thrive and have a foundation that can bring you long term security, long term fulfillment, and long term abundance.
Awesome. Awesome. And at the bottom, I'll have a link to a page where you can find out a number of resources, what the different resources where Derek shows you how to do that. And awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. It's so awesome to spend time with you. So awesome to have you share your wisdom, hard won wisdom. Uh,
I did.
and
Some of us have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So I loosen. Let's just put. I loosen the cap. I loosen the lid. So when you guys go, oh, they popped right off. Um, right? No, it's true. And we've all got our crosses to bear. We've all got our challenges, and the world is struggling a lot, and many people watching probably are struggling in their own different ways. And so I just think it's very heartening. Again, I didn't want to bring all the energy down, but I wanted to really make the point that whatever you're going through or growing through, there is a way. The what's in the way really is the way. And there is a way for you to start to create whatever, get out of whatever challenge you're in. Like I said, I grew myself out of every challenge. I didn't go around it. I grew myself out of it by practicing these principles. So I'm very excited to see what's going to emerge for all these folks as they go to that link, take advantage of all the free trainings and all the free stuff. And I can't wait to hear from you.
awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Brad.